Who's hot and who's not? Hitter edition in the month of May so far. Names that are hot, and we've talked a lot about Rafael Devers, but he did it again, hit his 10th home run, and in May he's hitting 400 with 5 homers, 20 RBI, and a near 1,200 OPS. Riley Green, 3 for 4 with his 12th home run, and in May hitting 333, 6 homers, 18 RBI, 1 steal, 1079 OPS. And Isaac Paredes is picking things up, hit his 8th home run, and so far in May, hitting 286, a 400 on base with 4 home runs and a 924 OPS. There was a level of doubt early on for Devers, but he's put that completely behind him. Chris, there was a lot of concern with Riley Green. I saw some concern with Paredes. Just another reminder for some patience here with some of these names.
That's exactly it. These are for the most part pretty well established hitters. I guess Paredes not so much because we only had the one great season from him, and Green, I guess, only one like high level season. But yeah, all of these guys deserve more than a month, certainly. And I think it is natural to react to April. It is natural when you look at a player's season-long OPS and it's in the 600s. It is natural to look at that and say, this is bad. This is going to continue to be bad. But I've referenced this a few times when I wrote a piece last April or maybe early May, and I compared April production to the rest of the season, and then I compared June production to the rest of the season. And April has no more predictive power for what a player will do moving forward than their June production does. That is not how we tend to think this will work. We tend to think that the start of the season should have some predictive value, and it just doesn't. Getting off to an especially good or bad start in April just doesn't really matter. And it's hard to keep that in mind, but it's worth keeping in mind that when you're talking about established players, especially, and players with upside, unless they're hurt or they're losing playing time, a slow start just really shouldn't change how you view them that much. Even though it feels like it should. I understand how hard this is to internalize it, and I struggle with it too. But it's true. Like that, it just is true that April doesn't matter more than June.
It's also just, it's mostly a psychological thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we've waited so long for baseball to come back, and this is the first thing that we're seeing, and we want to react to it, and we want to have an opinion, and
absolutely,
we want our fantasy teams to get off to good starts. I totally get all of that stuff. Like
it sucks to watch your team tumble down the rankings.
Exactly, but just a reminder, like we actually got an interesting email, and I want to bring this up at some point. Like if you fall too far behind in ratio stats in Roto, like how to climb back up. And the obvious answer is just, all right, get good performance, but it's how late into the season can you be low in those categories and then pick things up? And you would be surprised, man. Like if you have a lot of slow starters on your team and they all come together at the same point, which is just for the most part natural regression on guys that we expect to just, kind of figure things out, then you'd be surprised how quickly you can move up like Roto standings and not just Roto, like head to head, like you can have huge weekly performances and things. So it's just a reminder that yes, we're almost 2 months into the season, but you could still turn things around if you are off to a slow start.
And one thing I do want to say is the further you get into the season while being low in the rankings, the more you should be trying to get high upside players who are struggling, because what you then need if you're in last place at the end of May is a bunch of high level performances immediately, because you need to make up a lot of ground. And so that's where you look at slow starters, and you should probably be trying to go out and get them, just because if you're in 11th place and you go trade for, I'm trying to think of like what the right example, like Anthony Santander. If you go out and trade for Anthony Santander and he just stinks the rest of the way, just like he has so far, Okay, you dropped to 12th. Like I don't. That's not really that. Like there's a difference between 11th and 12th, unless you really want to avoid your league's last place punishment if you have one. But if Anthony Santander hits like he did last year from June 1st on, and you paid a discount price for him, that's the best way you're going to turn your season around. And it's not just Anthony Santander. It's Aaron Nola or whoever has been bad. So William Contreras, Jackson Chourio. Like your chances of turning your season around are better if you bet on the disappointing slow starters, because at least they have the upside to turn your season around.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, this is obvious. Like how to pull things like that off is, the hope is that you don't have deficiencies everywhere on your team. Like hopefully you have a position of strength that you can move from, or you have one player that's, overperforming right now and things like that. And you trade those players to kind of obviously, we're talking about rudimentary stuff here, but buying low on struggling players and buying low on the categories that you need, right? We were talking beforehand. I'm first place in NL Labor in home runs. I am dead last in batting average and steals. And it's not a good feeling. And something needs to change. So, I've been shopping guys like Seiya Suzuki and Lars Nootbaar, and I don't want to trade those guys, but if I can bring back a Bryce Terang or something like that, I mean, that feels like a pretty clear player that I need on a team like that.
And I think Nootbaar is a good example of a guy. Like, I'm not saying I don't buy it. I'm not saying that he's like going to fall apart, but he's outperforming expectations by quite a bit so far. So that's a good example of a player who, even if you like him the rest of the way, trading him for someone who was ranked higher than him coming into the season, absent a really compelling reason to think that player won't turn it around, you should still be looking like preseason projections should still matter a decent amount in how you view players. I know that's hard to think about, but it's still true.
And there are in-season projections too that you can go look at on FanGraphs and to get an idea. And some of those have changed. Like obviously some opinions should change on players that have gotten better and things like that. So no, I think it's a really good, talking point about, what to do if you've kind of fallen behind this early in the season. And speaking of which, some other players who's not hot right now is Jackson Chourio, who, we just brought up last week. And then he went into a crazy slump. I think I heard on the broadcast, he was like in an 0 for 25 streak, which he broke today. And so the batting average is down to 237. The OPS is down to 672. Quality of contact is down this year. Pete Alonso, another one that just has come crashing down in May, hitting 222 with a 644 OPS. Obviously was so awesome in April. There was, bound to be some regression there. Anthony Santander, you brought up the name. He was dropped to 6th in the Blue Jays lineup, and he responded with his 6th home run of the season. It's just his batted ball distribution is just kind of out of whack this year. His fly ball rate is down. The ground balls are up. So
he just looks bad right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Ben Rice, who kind of needed a big game, 2 for 3 with his 10th home run here. His previous 15 games before this one, he was hitting just 200 with a 653 OPS, but he was still hitting the crap out of the ball. The barrel rate looked great. So we've been getting some questions on Ben Rice. I think he's a pretty clear hold, Chris, but what do you think about him and some of these other struggling hitters right now?
Yeah, I think the problem with Ben Rice is less the production and more the playing time and what that's going to look like moving forward.
He sat for the previous 8 before this game.
Yeah, and we do still think Giancarlo Stanton will be active at some point. So yeah, it's going to require an injury to someone or the Yankees getting creative about their usage of Ben Rice to avoid that. So it's a little concerning. I'm not so concerned about the production. I think Ben Rice will be good. It's just, he just might not be an everyday player moving forward. Alonso, I think this is just classic. He was hot in April and he's not hot now. And this is a very clear example of a guy who your opinion on Pete Alonso should not have changed because he had a good April. He has had very good months before. He will have good months moving forward. He will have bad months moving forward. But Pete Alonso is 29, 30, very well established, several hundred career home runs. he was not changing his stripes because he had a hot April. Now, Jackson Chourio, we have less of a sample size of him being a high-level performer. It was really the last 4 months of last season. But that is also instructive because what do you think his OPS was on this date last year?
650.
You are overstating it. He had a 594 OPS on May 21st. He was in the middle of a deep slump at that point as well. And obviously Jackson Chourio ended up with a 791 OPS for the season and was a top 12 hitter in fantasy from like July 1st on or whatever it was.
Even from June on, he was really good.
Yeah, he might just be streaky. He might just have some of that Julio Rodriguez in him where the plate discipline's pretty bad. And it might be hard for Jackson Chourio to be a consistent performer, but we've seen what the upside is. There's no way you're dropping Jackson Chourio. He's running a bit more of late, I believe, which is what we want to see. So yeah, I'm frustrated. I'm right there with you on the Jackson Chourio frustration. I don't think there's anything you can do about it. Trading him would be a mistake. We've seen how good he can be, and dropping him would absolutely be a gigantic mistake. It just keep in mind that all players fluctuate. Their production fluctuates. Their talent level fluctuates. Guys get hot. Guys get cold. You've got to keep steady, at least with these types of players. You know, your 212th pick. Okay, whatever. Drop him. I don't care. He's off to a bad start. Jackson Chourio, I'm going to give him a long leash.
Yeah, looking at the underlying plate discipline metrics for Chourio, man, he is just chasing so much this year. And I mean, that wasn't a huge problem for him last year. 32% chase rate last year. That's around league average. 42% this year is absurd. And I just wonder if there's a level of the Brewers lineup has got off to such a bad start that maybe he feels responsible.
Could be pressing.
Make something happen and kind of press here. But man, it's easier said than done, but yeah, he would benefit from, I think, being a little bit more selective here. And because the zone contact is still great. It's actually better than it was last year. And so
he's seeing more pitches in the zone, and he's swinging at more pitches in the zone as well. So he's just being more aggressive overall.
Yeah.
And, you know, part of it might be like swinging at the first pitch is usually a very good idea. Especially as a leadoff hitter, like the first pitch of the game. There's a piece on Fangraphs the other day about like the results when hitters swing at the very first pitch of the game, which is usually a fastball. And you put up bonkers numbers if you swing at the first pitch of the game. And so, you know, there could be something where he's just pressing, being a little too aggressive. That would all make sense for a young player. Yeah.